My spoiled older sister showed up at my house begging to stay because her husband had kicked her out. However, I soon discovered that she was the one who had been abusive and at fault. I, a 30-year-old woman, have been living separately from my family for the past 6 years. My family consists of my mother Kathy, 55, and my older sister Jenny, 28. Jenny was always my mom's favorite child, or we can say the golden child, and this caused a lot of tension between us growing up. 6 years ago, I was forced to leave our family home due to a series of conflicts with Jenny. She had always been controlling and manipulative, often using her position as the favorite to get her way. The final straw came when she accused me of stealing money from our mother's purse. I didn't do it, but Jenny convinced our mom that I was lying. The atmosphere at home became unbearable, with constant arguments and distrust. Eventually, Jenny gave me an ultimatum. Either I confessed to the theft, which I didn't commit, or left the house. I chose to leave, as I couldn't bear the thought of admitting to something I didn't do. For the past 6 years, I've been living on my own, working hard to build a life for myself. I have a decent job as an accountant at a small firm, and I've managed to rent a small but comfortable apartment. I've had minimal contact with my family during this time. My mom occasionally calls to check in, but our conversations are usually short and superficial. I haven't spoken to Jenny at all since I left. Last week, on a rainy Tuesday evening, I heard a knock on my door. When I opened it, I was shocked to see Jenny standing there, soaking wet and crying. It had been so long since I'd seen her that, for a moment, I didn't even recognize her. She looked different, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes and a haunted look on her face. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated. The last time I'd seen Jenny, she had been yelling at me to get out of our family home. Now here she was asking to come into mine. Felt surreal. After a moment, I stepped aside and let her in. Jenny stumbled into my apartment, leaving wet footprints on the floor. She collapsed onto my couch, still crying. I stood there awkwardly, not sure what to do. Part of me wanted to comfort her, but another part was still angry about the past. "What's going on, Jenny?" I finally asked. Between sobs, Jenny managed to explain that her husband had kicked her out. I was surprised to hear this. I knew she had gotten married about 3 years ago, but I hadn't been invited to the wedding and didn't know much about her husband. He's been abusive," Jenny choked out. "It's been getting worse and worse. Tonight he just lost it. He threw me out and said if I came back, he'd kill me." I felt a mix of emotions hearing this. On one hand, I was horrified that Jenny had been going through this. No one deserves to be in an abusive relationship. On the other hand, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of anger. Where was this vulnerability and honesty 6 years ago, when she was accusing me of theft? "Why didn't you go to Mom's house?" I asked. Jenny looked up at me, her eyes red and puffy. I didn't want to worry her," she said. "She doesn't know about the abuse. I've been hiding it from her. I didn't want her to know I'd been kicked out." I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to help Jenny, to be the bigger person and put our past behind us. But another part of me was screaming that this wasn't fair. Jenny had forced me out of our home, cut me off from our family, and now she expected me to take her in. "Jenny," I said slowly, "I don't know if I can help you. We haven't spoken in 6 years. You forced me to leave home, and now you show up here expecting." "What exactly?" Jenny's face crumpled. "I know," she whispered. "I know I have no right to ask for your help, but I didn't know where else to go. I'm scared, and I'm alone, and I'm sorry for everything." I stood there, torn between my anger at the past and my concern for Jenny's current situation. I didn't know what to do. After much internal debate, I reluctantly agreed to let Jenny stay with me for a few days. She said she needed time to sort things out with a lawyer regarding her situation. I made it clear that this was temporary and that I wasn't getting involved in her personal matters. I continued with my normal routine, going to work and maintaining my own life. For 4 days, Jenny stayed in my spare room. We didn't talk much beyond necessary interactions. I could tell she wanted to discuss things more, but I kept my distance. The wounds from our past were still raw, and I wasn't ready to open up. On the 4th day, after work, I was walking to my car in the office parking lot when a man approached me. He introduced himself as Mark, Jenny's husband. I was immediately on guard, remembering Jenny's claims of abuse. However, what Mark told me next left me reeling. According to Mark, Jenny wasn't the victim she claimed to be. He said that he had recently discovered Jenny was having an affair with his friend, Tom. Apparently, Tom had been coming to their house frequently, mostly when Mark wasn't home. Mark found out about this and confronted Jenny, which led to a huge argument. He admitted to yelling at her to leave but denied any physical abuse. Mark went on to explain that Jenny had filed a domestic violence case against him. He seemed desperate as he told me that the only evidence that could prove his innocence was on a flash drive that Jenny had taken with her. This drive allegedly contained security camera footage from their home, showing Jenny with Tom and proving that Mark hadn't been abusive. I stood there, stunned. Part of me wanted to dismiss Mark's story outright. After all, isn't this what abusers do? Try to discredit their victims? But another part of me remembered the Jenny I grew up with. Manipulative, dishonest, always playing the victim when it suited her. Mark pleaded with me to help him. He asked if I could try to find the flash drive and, if necessary, testify in court about Jenny's past behavior and manipulative tendencies. He emphasized that he wasn't asking me to lie, just to share my experiences with Jenny if it came to that. I didn't give Mark an answer right away. I told him I needed time to think and process this information. He gave me his contact details and left, looking defeated. Now I'm torn. On one hand, if Mark is telling the truth, then Jenny is once again manipulating people and potentially ruining an innocent man's life. On the other hand, if Jenny is telling the truth, then by helping Mark, I could be aiding an abuser and putting my sister in danger. I haven't confronted Jenny about this yet. Part of me wants to search for the flash drive while she's out, but I know that would be a huge violation of privacy. Another part wants to just ask her outright about Mark's claims, but I'm afraid of how she might react if she's lying. Update. After much consideration, I decided to help Mark. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than Jenny was letting on. I started by unobtrusively searching for the flash drive when Jenny was out, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I began to wonder if Mark had been mistaken about its existence. Then, one afternoon, I caught a break. I was working from home and saw Jenny using a flash drive on her laptop. When she was done, she carefully hid it in her suitcase. A few minutes later, she left the apartment, saying she had some errands to run. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't resist. I retrieved the flash drive from her suitcase and plugged it into my computer. What I found confirmed Mark's story. There were several video clips from their home security cameras. They showed Jenny with Tom, Mark's friend, in compromising situations. There were also recordings of arguments between Jenny and Mark where she was clearly the aggressor, and Mark was trying to de-escalate the situation. I felt sick to my stomach. Jenny had lied again, and this time she was trying to ruin an innocent man's life. I quickly made a copy of the flash drive's contents and returned the original to Jenny's suitcase. The next day, I met with Mark and told him what I'd found. I agreed to testify if necessary, but I hoped it wouldn't come to that. Mark was grateful and said he'd have his lawyer reach out if they needed my statement. The case went to court a few weeks later. Mark's lawyer presented the evidence from the flash drive, along with testimony from neighbors who had witnessed Jenny's behavior. I didn't end up needing to testify, as the evidence was overwhelming. The judge dismissed Jenny's claims of abuse and instead scolded her for filing false charges. I thought I'd feel relieved when the truth came out, but I was unprepared for what happened next. Jenny was furious with me. She showed up at my apartment, screaming that I had betrayed her and ruined her life. She said she'd never forgive me and that I was dead to her. What shocked me even more was my mother's reaction. She called me absolutely enraged. She criticized me for not supporting Jenny and for airing our family's dirty laundry in public. It became clear during our conversation that she had known about Jenny's affair and her plan to accuse Mark of abuse. She had been supporting Jenny's lies all along. I was devastated. I had always known my mother favored Jenny, but I never thought she'd go this far. It made me question every interaction I'd had with them over the years. In the aftermath, I decided to cut ties with both Jenny and my mother. It was a painful decision, but I knew it was for the best. I couldn't have people in my life who would lie so easily and try to destroy someone else's life to cover up their own mistakes. Mark reached out to thank me again. He's doing okay, all things considered. He's filed for divorce and is working on rebuilding his life. As for me, I'm trying to process everything that's happened. I know I did the right thing by exposing the truth, but it's come at a great personal cost. I've lost what little family I had left, but I've also gained something valuable, the knowledge that I can trust my own judgment and stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know I'll face it with a clear conscience.